Texas City, where have you gone? You could feel the blast down in Houston. See the smoke inside.
Hi everybody, welcome to Texas City Tales, History Uncovered. My name is Teresa Mayfield. I'm a local history librarian with Moore Memorial Public Library, and with me is
Shelby Rodwell, curator of the Texas City Museum.
Hi Shelby.
Hey Teresa.
We got a big topic to discuss today.
Yes, we do. We do.
The 1947 Texas City disaster.
Yes, it is a subject that I can talk a lot about. It is something very interesting.
I remember in our last episode you mentioned something about World War II as a precursor to this podcast. So tell me a little bit of what you were thinking.
Yeah, so America entered World War II December 11th, 1941, right? Just a few days after the attacks on Pearl Harbor. Of course, the disaster happens after the war, but the precedent of a Second World War really had the entire nation a little bit on edge. It's right as we're starting to enter the Cold War, right? So there's this comfort in knowing that the war is over, but this trepidation, right, that anything could happen again. And now, now the world is familiar with what nuclear weapons can do, and that technology is out there. So there's, some uncomfortability, right, bit shaken, so to say. And then the disaster happens. And I think the war being a precedent right before the disaster, that's really big for the communities that experienced the disaster. And not only that, World War II, it not only took the nation out of the Great Depression, it also, the production in industry in Texas City really ramped up during World War II. So it made the Texas City port an even more important location nationally for production. There was chemicals being made for both for the production of rubber and for the production of explosives to help the war effort. And once those factories were set up, right, and once that industry is really booming, it stayed that way. So the war, it feels odd to say, but the war economically helped this area as well as the nation, right? So when we brought up the civil defense, it kind of made me start thinking about what was happening in Texas City at that same time. So I'd like us to take everybody through that day, through April 16th, 1947.
Well, first, do you know why the Grand Camp was docked in Texas City?
Yeah, so it was a French ship, and it was docked in Texas City to pick up at least roughly 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is a chemical utilized not only in fertilizers, but in the production of explosives.
But in this case, this is after the war, and, you have to feed a lot of people in Europe, right? Everything's been decimated. So you have to get crops going, right? So they were needing this ammonium nitrate to help the farmers in France start to build up their supplies of food for the country. Right. So the United States wanted to have these countries get back up on their feet as quickly as possible.
Right. In the best nation for the world entirely, right? To begin rebuilding after such an awful period.
Right.
So the Grand Camp was here to pick up those items. It was also on its way to Texas City. It picked up about 16 cases of small arms ammunition from Belgium. That I'm not as sure as to why, but it was, I'm presuming, on the way. But that kind of makes for a really dangerous situation. It was about 8 a.m. on April 16th that workers at the dock, longshoremen that were loading the ammonium nitrate, they noticed that there was a small fire that was smoldering. They don't know how it started to this day. We're not entirely clear how that fire started. It's entirely possible it was a cigarette butt that was not fully put out. It's also Texas and it's hot.
Well, there were signs all around, but they were in French, like saying don't smoke.
Right.
Right. And so if I don't speak French, if I don't read French,
Yeah, exactly.
I might not know that this is something
Yeah.
I have to be careful for. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also a time where smoking was everywhere,
prevalent,
and
yeah.
it was very, very common
Right.
to smoke in public spaces. So that's the leading theory, but it's not been confirmed. It's not totally sure. So about 8 a.m. is when they recognized that a fire was aboard somewhere in the cargo hold. So the longshoremen began trying to put out the fire. That didn't work. It continued to spread. Ammonium nitrate is really volatile. It's very flammable. And then by 8:25 in the morning, the entire Tech City Fire Department had gone to the docks. And not just the fire department, also citizens came to the dock to help out and to try and put this fire out. At this point, there's huge plumes of bright orange smoke coming from the Grand Camp that's kind of alerting the town that something's happening, right?
Right. So people are heading over to the docks, not just adults, but kids were there too.
Yeah, there was this what's going on over there? That's so people were coming to see what was
Check it out.
happening. Yeah, there was not only just people trying to help put the fire out, but people just curiosity. Unfortunately, those initial efforts, though, for them to put out the fire weren't working. So the captain of the Grand Camp.
Yeah, I heard about him. He made a decision that's going to change the story.
Yes, he did. And honestly, I don't know, what decision would have been better in this case, right? Like I don't know. I'm also not a chemist, so I'm probably the wrong person to talk about that, right? But all the water that they were pumping into the Grand Camp to try and put out the fire just wasn't working. So the captain of the Grand Camp's thought was that we need to get as much moisture into the cargo hold as quickly as possible. So he told everybody to start pumping in steam. Unfortunately, with that, steam is really, really hot. So the internal temperature of the Grand Camp quickly shot up to 850 degrees.
Well, I heard too that they had to batten down the hatches, so they completely covered it, so that no air could escape, because they really wanted to try and kill the fire.
Right. But really, what that did, again, it just quickly rose the internal temperature.
Right.
Ammonium nitrate is explosive at 850 degrees, so the cargo hold reached at least that at 9:12 a.m. on April 16th, and it exploded. And it was such a strong explosion that a seismograph picked it up in Denver.
So yeah, they thought that it was an earthquake.
Correct.
Yeah. So
yeah, they thought it was they thought that there was a low-level earthquake in Denver, Colorado, which is really significant. And the Grand Camp, when it exploded, it just it shredded. So there's giant pieces of shrapnel raining all over the city. There's also the shockwave. The force of the explosion itself was destroying homes in the immediate area, blowing out windows in Galveston. I've even heard stories from survivors in Baytown that had their windows blown out. It was truly felt all over.
So one of the items that they had on the Grand Camp was this swizzle twine, right? The string and balls, right? And that became a projectile also. I mean, the ship, of course, explodes and it breaks into like little tiny pieces, but then everything that's on the ship is also the shrapnel. And these things were starting fires at some of the refineries, the oil tanks.
That's correct, yeah. Monsanto Chemical Company. So in early Texas City, there was the Texas City Sugar Refinery. It was around the 40s when Monsanto took over the old sugar refinery so that they could produce the chemicals that I was talking about earlier for the war effort. They were situated immediately by the docks, just like today, how the industry is right by the port. It completely decimated the Monsanto refinery, and the fires at Monsanto lasted, and other fires around the city lasted for over a week, or roughly a week after the initial explosion. And I say initial explosion, it was kind of a chain reaction, right? There a couple other ships in docked at the time. There was the High Flyer as well that was also filled with ammonium nitrate.
And nobody knew that right away.
Right, exactly. And to put the little cherry on top too, High Flyer also had sulfur on it. So again, not a chemist, historian, but from what I understand, sulfur and ammonium nitrate together,
Interactive.
very
Badly.
Yeah, badly, very badly. The captain of the High Flyer, they in all of the chaos after that explosion, the captain of the High Flyer realized, oh no, there's a fire on the High Flyer now. It got blown from its moors. So he attempted to move the ship away from the docks, but this massive cargo ship just exploded. The waters filled with debris. It couldn't move. It was stuck there. So Tech City had to brace itself for a second explosion that happened at about 1:10 a.m. on April 17th. So just about 15 hours after the initial explosion.
And I heard that explosion was even bigger than the Grand Camp. But the Grand Camp had the most damage because that was the first one to flatten the town.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people around, so it caused
Yeah.
the most damage right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, anytime I'm talking about the disaster if we're giving tour groups or in a situation like this, I just keep thinking back to this is a community that is still actively healing from World War II. And there was already concerns about, like I said, the Cold War. So people are just at school, they're just at work, they're walking down the street, they're in their house making breakfast, and all of a sudden there's a catastrophic explosion felt literally across the nation.
And you don't even know it.
And you don't know what's
didn't even know
happening.
it was going to happen.
Yeah, you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly chaotic, to say the very least.
I mean, this story is so complicated
It is.
to share, right? Because there's so many moving parts, and so many people in Tech City were affected by it.
Absolutely, yeah.
For years to come. But I think that we'll have a lot in our next episode. I think we'll have a lot to share about the after effects
Right.
of the Tech City disaster.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm Teresa Mayfield, Marlboro Public Library, local history librarian,
And I'm Shelby Rodwell, curator of the Tech City Museum.
and we'll see you on the flip side.
Doors were ripped from their hinges and it blew the windows in every home. Split some buildings in two and turned that city into a tomb.